Hi everyone, we're going to do a lovely tree scene today. I want you to really think about the perspective and how it tapers in. I'll pop the drawing up on screen large for you and the photograph. What I'm doing now is wetting the paper thoroughly. I'll talk you through the colours as I go. It might get a little bit blurry because I've lifted it up. I've done this in class, and when I lift up it, the camera autofocuses, but stay with it because it does come back. Okay, so I've made sure that the paper is nice and thoroughly wet. And then I'm coming on with my round number 10. And this is going to be some raw sienna. So this is a pea-sized blob in about half a teaspoon of water. And I'm going to pop that on towards the back to get a bit of a glow towards those back trees. So you can see me applying that. So it's really important to get a nice glow because this is quite a dramatic scene and it's mainly monochrome. So we want to make sure that that's going to have a really lovely glow. I'm just popping a little bit onto the foreground as well. Rinsing my brush off. I'm just coming into a tiny bit of burnt sienna as well. So the burnt sienna is a little bit warmer, so that's going to have a really nice effect. Just bringing the glow a little bit more. It's giving a nice softness. There you go, it's focusing better now. I'm picking up a small brush now, and I'm going to come into a grey. That grey I've made with burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And this is the same grey I'm going to use all the way through. So this is coming on to wet. This is my rigger. So it's a size 2 rigger, nice long point. I'm going to get a really nice soft effect for about the distant 4 trees, the very distant ones. And then we're going to build forward and get more and more dramatic as we go. So I'm just doing the branches towards the top. You don't need to spend too much time thinking about how these branches go because they're going to be very, very soft in the wet and wet. And it's just there really to give a bit of a sense of distance and a bit of a sense of atmosphere. So you can see that I'm flicking upwards and outwards. And then what I'm doing now is just grounding them at the bottom. So that's with that little bit of grey. I'm spreading it out. And that's just going to give them a little bit of a grounding. You can see that because it's a cotton paper that I use, the Saunders Waterford, it stays wet for a very long time. So it's given me plenty of time to work that and be happy with those distant 2 trees either side. And then with a round number 6, I'm coming in just to create some shadow on the ground. Again, I want this to be soft. So this little bit either side is just going to give, it's another sense of distance. It's giving that sense of perspective to this dramatic scene. I've gone lighter one side than the other. That's just dried a little bit, so I'm just dampening that edge just to make sure that it flows. Don't want that to be hard. So it's all about giving atmosphere at this stage. So I'm just talking through saying that that atmosphere needs to be there, that softness needs to be there, and those trees in the distance, that's going to give a really nice sense of depth. So I've dried that off thoroughly. And now I'm going to come into that same grey, but I've added a tiny little bit of water so it's slightly lighter, because the mix that I've got is quite thick. I've made it slightly lighter. I'm coming on with my round number 6, and I'm going to get the next tree that's coming towards the foreground. So this is on to dry now, but because the paint is lighter, it's going to still give it a sense of distance, because as we come forward, the paint will get darker. So I'm applying that now to the trunk. Doesn't matter if you get confused as to what tree you're on. As long as you've got trees and you're applying the principles of getting darker as you come forward, it will still work. As you can see, they're all getting confused about which tree they're actually on right now. So I'm starting to work now upwards of the branches, but I will turn around because I prefer to paint downwards. So I prefer to paint downwards so that I get a nicer point. I'm moving down to my rigger, and that same waterier paint, I'll use my photo as a reference and start to apply the branches. So when you're doing the branches of the trees, you just need to think about staggering those junctions. You don't want them all coming off at the same point. You want them to taper as they get towards the end. Keep them nice and small at this stage. As you come forward, everything's getting bigger. At this stage, it's nice and small. You can already see that there's a sense of depth and distance there by those softer trees behind. And this is all about what this tutorial is about, getting that depth and distance and how to achieve that. So what I'm doing now is I've taken some of the darker paint and I'm painting it on the inside edge of those trees so that they've got a dark side and a light side. Then I'm going to twizzle back round and I'm going to soften in and create that shadow that grounds them at the bottom again. So there's a theme to this. Every single one will be exactly the same. You're just getting bigger and darker as you come forward. You see me just with the round number 6 softening that in. So that's dried off and I'm now going to come in again. So I've turned it upside down. I'm going to come in again and do the next set of trees. So this time I'm going to use the paint that's dark. And these will be getting a little bit bigger again. So focus on getting a nice shape. I'll use my round number 6 to the point that I can't use my round number 6. Then I will swap down to my rigger. It's always best to use the biggest brush you can for the job. Gets it done quicker. So with a damp brush now I'm just touching in. This particular tree had quite a lot of white on the trunk, so I've left white gaps and I'm touching in and softening in with a damp brush so that I don't eliminate all of those white gaps. Now I'm coming in with my rigger and the dark paint. I'm going to start to do the bigger branches. So this is a different technique you can try, and it's rolling the brush between your fingers. You can see that I'm rolling it between my thumb and forefinger as I'm doing the stroke. This gives a real good sense of randomness. As a beginner, it can be quite hard and challenging because you don't want random. But as you become more advanced, you want those random strokes to happen. And this just helps you to do that. So the way it's rolling the brush between your thumb and forefinger. So I'm spending some time getting some really nice detail into these branches now. I'm getting closer to the foreground, so I needed that little bit more detail. And I've twizzled around again, got my round number 6, it's damp, I've dabbed it off, and I'm just touching the bottom edge of that tree to bring some of that colour again into the pathway. It's that same pattern. I've dabbed into the grey just to take a little bit more in. Because I'm coming forward, I want it to get bolder. See how that grounds it? It immediately grounds the tree to the paper. Now I need to come on to do the other side, so I'm twizzling back round again. Dipping into my grey with my round number 6. And then this one's a bigger tree, so it's bigger and bolder now. You can see how it's come further down the page as well. That sense of perspective. You get bigger as they're coming towards you. Both come down the page a little bit and they go up the page a little bit. So that's just with a damp brush, I'm softening in that one side so the paint flows through and it makes it a little bit lighter, that side. I'm coming down to my rigger and I'm going to start to pop branches in again. So these ones are a little bit thicker, so I can apply more pressure with the brush. I'm just darkening that side. So you can see how I'm staggering these branches, getting them as fine as I possibly can. Using the grey, which was the ultramarine and burnt sienna mix. I'm going bigger because I'm coming forward. And I'm twizzling around, and I'm going to do that same shadow. So that's the round number 6 dipped into the dark. And I'm giving that real nice sense of shadow there, grounding that tree. Okay, so I've thoroughly dried that again, and then I'm coming on to the next trees with my round number 6 and my dark colour. This time I've mixed the dark a little bit thicker. So I've taken a bit more of the ultramarine in and a bit more of the burnt sienna, so that we've got a darker, thicker mix. And you can see that as I'm applying it on now, you can see that it's much blacker. The more ultramarine blue that you put into the mix, the more dark the colour will appear to near on black. And I'm using my round number 6 now for a lot more of this tree. So I'm using it for some of the branches. It's getting nice and big. And I'm using the edge of a tiny bit of bank card. So what this is doing is just picking out some little bits. It's a slight curved edge, so it's lifting out tiny little bits of light. So if you think about your bank card and how your bank card has that curved edge, it's that curved edge that I've used, and that has just lifted out at the right point some tiny little scrapes of light within the tree. So it's giving highlights. And then I'm coming in with the dark again, just to ground the tree. You can see that sense of distance now, how everything's getting bigger. So we're working with perspective, and we're working with the watercolour to give a real good sense of depth and distance. I'm coming on to the one on the opposite side now. Round number 6, I'm going to get the trunk in. Taking my time to get a really nice edge. And get those top branches. Then I'm getting that little bit of the corner of the bank card again, and just scraping those little bits of paint out as highlights. It's just taking that little bit of light out on this, if it's the rough bark. And then I'm coming in again with a little bit of dark at the bottom just to ground that tree. Then I'm going to come on to do the branches. So I'm twizzling round, turning my reference photo the right way round, and I'm going to start to paint those branches on. So this tree again needs to be bigger as we're coming forwards. So you're getting that sense of distance and that sense of perspective. So I'm going to continue to do branches with my rigger now. So I'm working a lot more detail into these trees because they're further forward, they're in the foreground, they need that more detail now. So it's a case of a labour of love, building those up, practising your strokes of branches. This is the way you get better at trees. Keep going. Okay, so you can see that I've come in to do that final tree trunk now. I'm using my round number 10 this time, so nice thick, and building that up. Again, it's come further down and further up. Then I'm moving to my number 6, so I progress downwards, trying to use the biggest brush that I can for the job. So I'm onto the branches now. So I'm starting the bigger branches with around number 6, and then I'll move down to my rigger. They can overlap the other ones, you want them to overlap. Build this up, picking up that little bit of bank card again and just scraping out with the curve of the card to get those little highlights at the sides of the tree. Just building that up. I needed to get to that side of the trunk to do that scraping before it dried. It's important you do that before it's dried. Then I'm going to twizzle around to soften in and to create that lovely shadow at the bottom. Twizzle back round and then continue with the branches. So making sure this trunk is nice and dark. I've taken an extra bit of blue in there. This is my round number 10 again. I'm getting that final trunk in. This is coming on to dry. Use the biggest brush for the job again. Keeping it to my round number 10 for now. I can even do the bigger branches with round number 10. You can see how high it's coming now. So it's helping to give that sense of perspective. I'm just mixing up a little bit more colour. There's a big thicker branch just at this bottom bit. Just overlapping from a tree that's actually further forward. So I'm continuing with those branches. Now I'm scraping with the bank card again just to create those little highlights. And twizzling round, and with my round number 10, I'm popping in that strong shadow coming inwards. It's a lovely avenue of trees. Very dramatic, great practice. Twizzling back round to do some more branches. And I'm doing those with my rigger. All the fine ones now, mixing up some more colour. It really is a labour of love, this picture, but it's such a dramatic scene, it's worth doing, and it's such great practice for you to get those random strokes onto trees. So you can see now how dramatic that looks. You've got a real sense of perspective. You can see the glow in the background. And what I'm doing now is a little bit of dry brushing. So I'm holding my brush quite flat to the paper, and I've taken some of the colour. This is my round number 10, and I'm scraping the side of the brush on the rough paper, and it's giving a tiny bit of texture for those very, very fine branches. You could paint lots more branches in, but you don't need to. See the side of the brush. Get that lovely fine effect. If it goes blobby, you can dab it off with a bit of kitchen towel. It's a good one to practice again, this. Okay, so I've dried that off well and mixed up a little bit more of the dark colour that's nearly black. And I'm using the dry brushing method again now. So I want that really strong contrast at the front, and there was lots of bits of light. So to get that, I'm using the brush flat, scraping the paper, but in horizontal strokes this time. So whereas in the sky where the trees ended, I was stroking round in an arch, I'm now stroking horizontally. I want to start to catch the surface of the paper in places, leave some of it dark, but leave some bits white, and dry brushing is perfect for that. So this is my round number 10. So you can see at points I'm changing the angle of the brush, and I'm painting in little bits, and I'm working my way down so that I'm going to have dark bits, and then I'm going to have bits where the light has just caught the surface. It's all very dramatic. Running out of paint again, so I'm just mixing up a little bit more. So you're going to have a little bit painted on, then you're going to leave some with just the scratching on the surface from the dry brushing. You can see how that's working. It's a really lovely picture. A labour of love, but worth definitely having a go for practice of trees. I know this is a new way of me doing it. I just wanted to try and utilise a class environment and taking that and popping it onto a video. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you next time.